hui. A te kaunihira o no roto o Rotorua I tēnā. Koutou kua takua mai, ki tēnei mahiri o tātou, me mihi ka tika. He nui ngā mahi, kei mua I te aroara, nā reira waimari e tātou katoa. Good afternoon everyone and welcome to today's council meeting, which is the start of our deliberations for the annual plan and our proposed spending for the next year. So welcome back councillors for this afternoon's session. Welcome to the media and to those that are listening on live stream. I will ask for Councillor Wang to open the meeting with a karakia. Ngā mihi, Trevor.
Tu taua mai runga, tu taua mai raro, tu taua mai roto, tu taua mai waho. Kia tau ai te Māori tū, te Māori ora, ki te katoa, humi e, hui e, tae ki e.
Ngā mihi, Councillor Wang. I'd like to call for any apologies. I do have an apology from Mayor Tapsell. Are there any other apologies? Don't appear to be none. Could I ask for a mover and a second that the apologies from Mayor Tapsell be accepted? Moved Councillor Barker, seconded Councillor O'Brien. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, thank you, carried. Declarations of interest, councillors. Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam Acting Mayor, Madam Chair, whichever title we're going with. Could I just declare that when it comes to funding, because of my participation in some non-profits, even though I don't personally profit, the organisations that I'm affiliated with have applied for and have received previous funding, so I won't be participating in those. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. That's noted. Councillor Barker.
I have similar interests in an organisation that receives funding from the Rotorua Lakes Council, so I'll be abstaining from that discussion also. Thank you.
Thank you. No further declarations of interest. Councillor Kiriopa.
Raise that in the apologies. I'll be back though, I'll only be gone for.
Thank you, that's fine, thank you. Councillor Wang.
Similar non-financial conflicts, however, similar to what I raised in during the hearings, I am involved, like many of us around the table, involved with organisations that do receive, whether that be funding or some, benefits through another way. However, have had no part in forming their submission and have stepped out of the room for those discussions. So, just like to put that on the table.
Thank you, Councillor Wang. Councillor Patterson.
Similar to Councillor Wang, that I am part of Tātou Pōnamu and I know they get support from Council, so I just want to make myself clear that I wasn't involved in any of those financial scenarios.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. I don't think that's a conflict of interest in those circumstances. Councillor Maxwell.
I guess many of us wouldn't be around this table if we weren't involved in the community out there somehow, somewhere. Just on a non-financial one, if any discussion come up regarding Lakeside, that is one I'm involved in, but at no cost to me. So no data, just noting that.
Thank you, Councillor Maxwell. Thank you to Councillor Waru. That's so noted. Any urgent items not on the agenda? There don't appear to be any. Thank you, councillors. Confirmation of the council minutes for the hearing on the 24th and 25th of May 2023 at page 6 of your agenda. I ask for a mover and a seconder that the minutes are a true and correct record. Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. Thank you, Councillor Waru. Are there any comments on the correctness of the minutes? There don't appear to be any. I'll put that motion that the minutes of the council hearing on 24 and 25 May 2023 be confirmed as a true and correct record. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against? Thank you, carried. Just before we start our meeting, councillors, I just wanted to make a few preliminary comments. It's been 8 months since we've been elected as a new council, and heard numerous times over that period about the impact of the cost of living crisis, inflation and the effects of on the economy post the COVID lockdowns. And so we're about to enter into an annual plan discussion where we have to set a budget for the next financial year, and it's going to be a balancing act to decide what we want to spend, what we want to deliver in terms of operations, and the levels of service and capital expenditure. And like households, we look to balance our books so that we can only spend what we receive for operational expenditure. For those capital projects, we would look to use debt for that so that they are paid back over the life of the asset. And to assist us in that decision making, we need to balance what the community wants us to deliver, what they have told us is a priority, as well as aiming to afford an achievable level of rates. By way of background, councillors, this process was started before Christmas, where we were advised where we were financially, the current environment, and following councillors' input, we looked at a wide range of council spending areas, and staff were asked to come back with a raft of proposals, options and scenarios to help guide us. And that resulted in the annual plan consultation document, which then went out to the public to seek their views on the 40 items that council could review. I'd like to take this opportunity to give a huge thank you to the public for being involved in this process, for taking the time to read the consultation document, for filling out the forms, coming to meetings and coming into the chamber to have your say. Council has received over 2,000 pieces of feedback in various formats, and they've all been captured so that the community's voice can be heard today. So your feedback has been tremendously valuable to us, and that will shape our decision that we make today. I'd also like to extend thanks to the staff for the amount of work that they have committed in participating in this process in different ways, those that have attended feedback sessions, who have spent countless hours collating all the feedback, analysing it and providing guidance to us. Because we have quite a lengthy meeting to get through, we will carry over until tomorrow. And I just thought that I'd just touch on a few things about how the meeting will be run, just to assist us with the process. Because there are 40 separate items that will need to be taken individually, I propose that we follow the standing orders and that we limit the time limit to 5 minutes to speak to a motion, that members may speak only once to a motion, and that if we have 3 speakers that have already spoken in favour of a motion, that I'll then call for any speakers who wish to speak to the contrary. It's probably not necessary for us to hear 10 speakers if everyone is in favour of the motion. I know you've all had a lot of documentation to read, but there still may be further questions that you have, and there will be an opportunity to ask the staff for further clarification. However, given the number of items that we need to get through, I wondered, in terms of fairness to everyone, if we could perhaps limit the questions to maybe 2 each, and if we could keep the questions to questions that are asked concisely without preamble or too much preface to the question. Obviously, if there are pressing matters, then obviously there's an opportunity for a little indulgence there, but I think in fairness to everyone, I think that will help make the process run a little bit more smoothly. Just before I continue, are there any questions around that process? Is everyone comfortable with that? Thank you very much, councillors. So I am now going to move to page 12 of your agendas. That's the consideration of the feedback on the draft annual plan for the 2023-24 consultation. Can I ask for a mover and a second to receive the reports? Moved Councillor Kiriopa, thank you. Seconded Councillor Barker. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Thank you. Carried. I now ask Thomas Colley to come forward to overview the report and speak to your presentation. Welcome, Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You did such a wonderful introduction, Madam Chair, that I will skip through the first 3 slides in the presentation.
Apologies.
Set a very good context. So just a reminder, councillors, that with regards to our journey, we are on the second final step with regards to deliberations on the proposals that are deviations from year 3 of the LTP. And then following this, we will move forward to finalising an annual plan, finalising the rates, and looking to have those adopted on the 28th of June. Just a little bit of a recap of what has happened since we went out for consultation. So you'll recall the initial draft annual plan had a rates increase of 11.95%. Underpinning the consultation document that went out is around financial prudence, alignment to your priorities, needing to do the things needs versus wants. And so we did go out with consulting on 7.2, and it's also saw a reduction of debt of $27 million, predominantly due to the development of a number of level of service improvements around open spaces. What we've since done is revised the annual plan number, and this is part of the normal process. As you can imagine, the draft consultation document was created back in February, and what we've done in particular are 3 things. The first one, looking at our capital works program and seeing what items are currently underway and not completed, and looking at carrying forward remaining budget. We've also had a look at some of our underlying expense lines and revenue lines, and in particular our external revenues, where they are trending higher than what we anticipated, and they have consistently sat there, and so we have revised those. Some of those have been in some fees and charges areas, and some has been in the rates area as well, and in particular water by metre and the general rate. And the third one, which has briefly escaped me, is just an overall general refinement with regards to a general tidy up as we've progressed through the remainder of this fiscal year, and just tidying up minor anomalies and variances. So as a result of that, it has reduced the rate requirement to fund the proposed plan underneath of it by $1 million, or $1.2 million, or close to 1%. And so what we have seen is a reduction of 7.2 to 6.25. And so going forward into your deliberations, that is now the new starting point with regards to where all the proposals sit. What we have also seen is a small increase in debt as well, and just a change in the CapEx as well with regards to carry forwards. So what has changed? One, we've realigned the museum project budget per what's currently being consulted on. So what we have done is brought the project back to just the $15 million that's been allocated, taking into account the money is spent. And so we have removed from it all the other options with regards to the previous budget, the external funding, because that is now part of a separate consultation process, and what falls out of that will be reflected into our budgets going forward. The IAF, which is the Infrastructure Acceleration Fund, which is a significant $100 million piece of work predominantly around stormwater infrastructure to support growth. We have had to bring forward some feasibility studies to make sure that when the first tranche of works commence, that the feasibility on multiple projects are known at once, so therefore we can have a cohesive approach towards the investment into those that stormwater infrastructure. So that has brought costs forward. Carry forwards with regards to capital projects, and I can go into a little bit more detail on the next slide on what they are, and then just the amending of the user fees and so forth. And so those were the 4 items that have contributed to that close to 1% change in the rate requirement. With regards to capital projects that have been carried forward, so that's obviously projects that are budgeted this year that are either currently underway or yet to be started, and that will go across into the next financial year or started into the next one. And so one is the budget that's set aside for the Rotorua Waste Scheme, so that project has commenced. and so that's picking up the remaining budget that is likely to be unspent this year and moved into next year. Similar again with the wastewater treatment plant upgrade, which is commencing. Wastewater reticulation upgrades, which is a piece of work around resolving some problematic parts of our network and improving them. The eyesight roof renewal, which we haven't been able to start due to the fact that it won't stop raining, and in particular because of the nature of it, the tiled roof, and not wanting the added cost of having to wrap the whole building, we have deferred it until the weather improves and we're able to do that. Similar again, property renewals. Some of that is targeted at the demolition of a couple of ageing buildings, in particular on Tenai. When we progress towards that work, we'll put a paper to you to explain what is being proposed before we go ahead on that one. Then there are 3 transport projects, rural seals, safety improvements and growth, again projects that are underway that will traverse across into the next financial year, and the council website and intranet, which is a project that is partly underway. The intranet component is being completed, and then the website itself as well will get a revamp, and in particular tying it into some of the new online services and portals that have become available with regards to the One Council project. Loan funding. So what are we planning to borrow for? $66 million worth of borrowing. Nearly half of that is related to the wastewater treatment plant upgrade. So million, 9 million skills, and for around study. So, with the idea, the of that is 50 between council and DI. There was a high participation with regards to the community and providing their feedback, and on top of that, the request to be heard in hearings was at a high level as well. Some were unfortunately not able to turn up, but we did have 62 end up turning up to the hearings. And so, just in summary, I guess, happy to answer any questions on just the new information that I've shared with you before you enter into the formal process of your decision making around each of the proposals.
Thank you, Thomas. Councillors, are there any questions on the presentation that you've just received? Councillor Waru.
Tēnā koe te Te Amana. Kia ora, Thomas. Just a quick question. If you could go back to that last slide, please. So I'm just asking the submissions, is there that's 2,100, the 13, well, whatever, 1,380, is that counted in that 2,100, or is that plus?
No, so that's, when we went out for consultation, we sent notification to stakeholders that we were consulting, and then obviously to the rest of the community as well, and then from that we received 2,100 submissions. Some from those stakeholder groups and people, but also some from other people that weren't contacted but were made aware of our consultation through advertising.
Thank you, Thomas. I read it differently for some reason, so okay, thank you.
Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you. Thank you, Thomas. Could I just ask very quickly, Is there any concern on your part that with we've obviously heard today about the lakes properties facing issues, with any remissions on rates, is there any danger that that could significantly be a large portion of money that may affect these figures going forward? Thank you.
When we've revised down our emissions budget, we're aware that there may be some of these requests challenges, and we're comfortable at this stage on the information that we have that we can accommodate those. Yep.
No further questions, councillors? Doesn't appear to be any. Thank you very much. Councillors, in your Stella, there are a number of documents, so I'm going to ask for a mover and a seconder that the committee receive the staff analysis of the draft annual plan consultation submissions. I have a mover for that. Thank you, Councillor Barker. Seconded, Councillor Brown. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Thank you. Carried. Councillors, I'm just going to work off the decision-making schedule, so we'll start with recommendation number 1, which is proposal 18. The proposal description is to shift the focus of the investment fund and reduce the budget by $200,000. So are there any questions in relation to this item? Councillor Brown.
Are we addressing Anaru for this? Thank you, Madam Chair. Anaru, just a question, how much do we normally spend in a given year? Is this a major reduction or do we have money left over?
We don't normally have money left over, Councillor Brown. Certainly this will be a challenge in regards to our current investment. So example, we have a contract, Crankworks contract that we need to honour. Equally, and I know you remember that through the annual planning process, the UCI BMX wasn't raised. However, that contribution will come into this financial year as well.
Councillor Waru.
No, that's all right. Thank you, Madam Chair. Councillor Brown asked my question. Got it.
Thank you. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Does this fund potentially affect the commercialisation of Shimpak? That's one of the submissions that we received. They say it contradicts the commercialisation of Shimpak if this fund was reduced.
Certainly, we're about to undertake a piece of work in regards to the Sir Howard Morrison Centre commercialisation and the management of those activities and develop a new operating model. Similarly, we're doing the same in the event investment and management space. So both of those pieces of work will have a link.
Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of quick questions before I get this. You know, in this column has got indicative rates impact. I think I know the answer, but I better make sure because it affects everything. What does plus 0.117 kind of mean? Is this meaning for either of these options that are there, that's how much it would cost towards the rates or from the rates?
I'll get Thomas to answer that because he can give you the definitive answer then in terms of that rates impact.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So to help councillors, what we have put in that column is the rates impact of each of these proposals. So what you do therefore know is that which way you vote, and if you put it back in, that will be the impact on the rates.
Okay. So these are questions at the moment because I'll wait till you speak to the motion later.
Thank you. Did you have any further questions, Councillor Maxwell? I just had one question, Anaru. It was just around Crankworks. So if we're reducing the fund from 500 to 300,000, Crankworks is how much and how much longer is that commitment for?
My understanding that's $250,000 till 2027.
And is that a firm commitment for that?
My understanding, yes, and there are obviously tags associated to that. It does not leave us very much by way of other events to support for Rotorua.
Are there any further questions, councillors? So the way in which this will... Councillor Wari?
Sorry, now I do have a question. Thank you, Madam Chair. So just, well, more just seeking clarification really. So half that 500k is Crankworks?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you. Kia ora.
No further questions, councillors? So the way in which this will work is that you'll see in your papers you have a recommendation with option 1 or option 2. I'd be asking for a mover and a seconder for either of those options. So, Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would move that Council agree to retain the current budget for the event. My reasoning being that with Crankworks taking...
I'll just take you've just moved that. So
Okay.
is there a seconder for that motion that you're going option 2, that the council agree to retain the current budget for the event investment fund of 500,000 and add that back into the budget? That's seconded by Councillor Maxwell. So Councillor Lee, do you want to take your up to 5 minutes to talk to that?
I'll try not to take that long, Madam Chair. The budget would be $250,000 out of 300 already used on Crankworks. That leaves too little for the staff to do their job in terms of promoting events. I think the feedback's been pretty strong that this is a tourist town. We want to attract events. We can't be going into our shell. We need to make this town vibrant and invite all of these people back and let them know that we're open for business. That's it in a nutshell. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. Councillor Maxwell, did you wish to speak as the seconder?
Yes, and I too won't take 5 minutes. I've always supported events. I think we have been successful in past years attracting very good better word than projects, events then that really lifts our city, the health and well-being of our city. I envy places like Melbourne overseas who are openly, and they do spend a lot of money in ensuring that events are a big part of their community. I think we've done well with Crankworks, and especially recently NRL, the rugby league, but there are countless, but I'm happy to second the motion and support.
Thank you, Councillor Maxwell. Are there any other comments that councillors wish to... Councillor Patterson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I tautoko my colleagues. Events in Rotorua is a cornerstone of our economy. If we're going to commit to what we stated, or at least I campaigned on at the beginning of the election, was that we need to build Rotorua back to what it was, if not grow it. COVID took a lot out of us, and we have to start somewhere. So events are one opportunity that we need to grow from and develop and become perhaps the #1 events location in New Zealand. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. So we've heard 3 councillors speak in support of the motion. Does anyone wish to speak against the motion? No, there doesn't appear to be. So I'm now going to put that motion that the council agree to retain the current budget for the event investment fund of 500,000 and add that back into the 2023-24 budget 200,000. Moved by Councillor Lee, seconded by Councillor Maxwell. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Against? Carried. Thank you. Proposal number 17 is the disestablishment of the event attraction role, which is 1 FTE, and the event planning role, which is 1 FTE, which will remove $150,000 from the budget. Are there any questions on this item? Councillor Waru?
Not a question, but perhaps something to speed up the process. And my corridor is that I want to move option 2 of that thing. I know we're not at that part now, but I'm just indicating that I will, because it makes no sense us putting the money back in for kaupapa and now we got nobody to do it. Kia ora.
I think we'll just take the questions. I've noted that you're happy to move the motion, but are there any questions in relation to this item? Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Anaru, can you do the job without these people?
Good question. From our team, and I know that you would have seen the submissions from our team, my answer would be no. We sadly, we did lose the attraction, the event attraction role, or the person in that role quite early in this process. However, unfortunately, if we do want to realise the benefits of events, then these roles become critical, in my view, in regards to us delivering what you're asking us to do.
Councillor Barker.
Anaru, is there a chance that there can be some consolidation and improvement in the way that events are managed across our organisation? Is there some way that a review could be done and to improve that?
Thank you, Councillor Parker. Yes, and as I said earlier, we are about to undertake a review in regards to events and the management of, and certainly a consideration of that will be how we might consolidate, given the demand that we have within this space. Certainly at the moment, if I can talk to our current event planning team, we have 3 of the 4, with one person who again decided to move on from council. So it puts pressure on the rest of the teams to deliver. So we will certainly look into that as part of the review, and we'll be able to come back to you with our findings.
Thank you.
No further questions. So Councillor Waru has indicated that he is moving that option 2. Is there a seconder for that motion? Thank you, Councillor Wang. Councillor Waru, do you wish to speak?
Tēnā koe te tiamana. Yep, I'll be very quick. As I said, it seems a bit backwards for us not to support the scope of it, given that we've just put the money back in for that very purpose of getting events here, attracting events. And also I know there's a lot of, you can only squeeze so much and then it becomes, not a good environment for people to work in. So I support it 100%, and then I'll leave it at that. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor Waru. Councillor Wang.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Fully support this, bringing back the roles, and I note the comment that that Anaru made before, unfortunately, about the staff already leaving this role very early on in the process, which is a real shame. But I want to talk about, obviously, this recommendation linking to the previous one, and the two of them obviously go hand in hand in supporting each other and bringing events attraction into our city. But I think it is also essential to recognise that the investment and the economic development that these 2 recommendations bring, and they also go hand in hand in building a thriving community. Cutting these would just send such a discouraging message into our community that holds back the potential for innovation, for job creation, for a flourishing events and arts community and also sends a message to potential investors as well that, you know, that we aren't open for business. But I'm in the view that we do need to attract new businesses. We need to foster and create an environment where opportunities flourish. So fully in support of retaining these roles. Thank you.
Are there any further councillors that wish to speak in relation to this motion? Don't appear to be any, so the motion is being moved by Councillor Warry, seconded by Councillor Wang, that Council agrees to continue to support the resourcing of the event attraction and planning roles and adds back the 2 FTE positions and the $150,000 back into the budget. All those in favour, please say aye, or raise your hands. Those against? Thank you, that is carried. Next item is the number 29, the Sir Howard Morrison Centre future commercialisation, which would reduce the rates funding impact by $200,000 per annum. Are there any questions for Anru in relation to this matter? Councillor Waru.
Tēnā koe te tiamana, kia ora anō Anru. Hey, just a quick question around the scope of you mentioned there's already work being done around a strategy to make this happen, to commercialise the place, right? That's all I had. Thank you.
Any further questions, councillors? Don't appear to be any, so we have two options there. So, Councillor Brown, you wished. Councillor Brown has moved option 1, that we agree to provide greater emphasis on commercial operations, seconded by Councillor Waru. Councillor Brown, you wish to speak to that motion?
No, thank you.
Councillor Waru?
Ka debate, thank you.
I think there's been pretty much overwhelming support in favour of this. So, sorry, Councillor Lee.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to acknowledge the staff submissions who in some cases did argue in favour of keeping it strictly as a performing arts centre. Times are tough, and we do need to find opportunities for helping to fund this. And one story did come to my attention that somebody had wanted to hire the centre for a funeral but had been turned down, and of course that's not exactly a performing arts event, but it would, I suppose, have been an opportunity for a little bit of money. And so yeah, a little bit of emphasis on earning some money out of that centre that we've invested so much in, I don't think would hurt at all.
Thank you, Lou. We've had 3 in favour, and are there any against?
I was hoping to make an amendment.
What's your proposed amendment?
So while I agree with the overall proposal, I would recommend that we amend the motion to protect access to the Sir Howard Morrison Centre for our community. Many of the comments that I had through the feedback that I've had face-to-face with the arts community in particular showed that. So I therefore move that the motion be amended to the following: that Council agree to drive a greater emphasis on commercial operations to subsidise the running of the Sir Howard Morrison Centre by targeting $200,000 of additional revenue and reducing the rates funding impact required by this amount, while ensuring a reasonable amount of access is allocated for community groups at affordable rates.
So I need a seconder for that amended motion. I'll just, maybe if we just capture that wording.
So it's just an addition to the end, which was while ensuring a reasonable amount of access is allocated for community groups at affordable rates.
Slow down, I think we just need to...
Sorry.
If you just watch the typing up there, and if you read to that, required by this amount while ensuring a reasonable amount of...
Access is allocated for community groups at affordable rates.
Reasonable. Is allocated. That should read access is allocated to community groups. Take out the 2 there, just on that bottom, second to bottom line. So we've got that amended motion that has now been put up there, which has been moved by Councillor Patterson and seconded by Councillor Maxwell. Did you wish to speak to that amendment, Councillor Patterson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes. So basically, the Sir Howard Morrison Performing Arts Centre, as it was previously known, was a core part of the community for performing wonderful shows like 8 Scott Ave, etc., that we've had recently. And Rotorua is well known for producing fantastic artists and performers. Unfortunately, there aren't too many places for them to be showcasing their talents before they get onto the big national stage. So to start here in Rotorua, they need a facility to be able to do that. And this current Sir Howard Morrison Centre affords them that opportunity with the upgrades that they've had. It's a fantastic new facility, and we should be ensuring that our community has at least partial access to it so they can continue fostering their talents and showing Rotorua for what we are, which is a real thriving arts centre and a place for developing fantastic talent on an international level. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. Yes, and in supporting Councillor Patterson's amendment, I too think that's a wise decision, considering that the community have invested in the rebuild of the Sir Howard Morrison Centre. I think of the generosity of Rotorua Energy Trust, even NZCT put in $1 million. So in Glen, and the schools come under this community rate. I think the community would be very pleased if we supported this. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor Maxwell. Any other councillors wish to speak in favour of the motion or against the motion? Councillor Waru.
Yeah, kia ora, te chairmana. No, I'm okay with the changes, with the amendments. Because as long as we don't lose sight of what commercialisation is, you know, there's not very many opportunities for us to use our facilities to create revenue like this. So yes, it's a revenue thing, but also balancing that out with the needs and giving our community a chance to perform. As a performing artist, I get it. So e tautoko ana i tēnei. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor Waru. We've had 3 in favour. Anyone against the motion? Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Despite my agreement and support for the objectives put by Councillor Patterson and Councillor Maxwell, I'll be voting against the amendment. This was a project that was significantly over budget, and while I share the aims and supports, we need to start paying some of this back, and as regrettable as it is, unfortunately I won't be supporting the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. Any further comments or debate, councillors? No, well, I'm now going to put that amended motion, which you can see up there with the additional wording that Councillor Patterson has provided. All those in favour of the amended motion, please raise your hands. Those against? Thank you, that is carried. Thank you, Anuru. Thank you, councillors. I don't know if you just need a minute to change papers. We're in the infrastructure priority section in your papers on Stella. This is item number 7, proposal number 7, which is to stop the waste minimisation education program by reducing the budget from $50,000 to 0. Are there any questions to our presenter who is not there at the moment, but if there are any questions I shall find someone to answer them. Question, Councillor Patterson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I just have a question. Before we went down this path, did we think about partnering with the people who actually, how can I put this nicely, have a bit of responsibility for the creation of most of the waste, like the supermarkets and the fast food joints? Have we ever talked to them about partnering with us to get involved in waste minimisation?
Well, I'll tell you,
I'm just wondering, Stavros has just stepped out of the room and he would be the person that would be answering that question. Are there any other questions in the meantime, or should we perhaps just leave this? We've got two infrastructure items, so we probably need Stavros, don't we? We just take a minute and I'll just see if we can find Stavros so that we can keep going in the order of the papers, otherwise I'll need to shift to a different section.
oh, let's stay in order, eh, Madam Chair? A lot easier. Well, if I can, Madam Mayor, I'll just be brave and I'd like to move now option number 2.
I think we'll just wait, Councillor Waru, till we get the questions out of the way, and so councillors have had the opportunity to hear the questions and the answers before I take a mover.
Oh, well, I'll leave it packed up for you. Kia ora.
Thank you, Stavros. We just have a question. We're on the waste minimisation education item, and Councillor Patterson, if you want to ask your question again so that Stavros can answer that for you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kia ora, Stavros. I just had a question around this particular item. It occurred to me, have we ever thought about partnering with those who might be deemed responsible for a big chunk of the rubbish, the supermarkets, the takeaway bars, etc., fast food outlets? Have we ever thought about getting them to partner with us to help address the problem itself?
Well, in effect, we are actually partnering. The work that our officer is doing at this point in time is actually working with them. And there are many instances where the sector is making some contribution towards education programs. Point is that the officer is actually doing that coordination between various parties in the whole process. And to some degree, also with regards to our rubbish, waste and recycling collection, the contractor themselves are doing education programs because they talk to property owners who create contamination. And in the we're going to be doing if we do the green and organic waste, the contract will require who the provider is to do some work. That function the current officer is performing at the moment is one of a coordination between various parties at the local level, regional level, and national level.
Thank you.
Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For you, thank you, Stavros. Could I just ask you, so with Council previously supporting and adopting the FOGO process, how would this, if we eliminate the actual, this particular role, how would that affect FOGO moving forward? Because it seems to me we're adopting a process, but does this impact on that particular process? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. No, I think at the end of the day, what we will do as part of our procurement process, we'll be asking the provider, how do they intend to provide an education program to the receiving properties, and they would factor into their service proposal.
Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What are Council's obligations under the Waste Minimisation Act?
They've got a whole range of of requirements, but the primary requirement is actually to provide a service that encourages minimization, and we're already doing a lot of that. As I said in my previous reports, at the moment we're diverting about 50% of the municipal waste to beneficial use. That's compliant with the minimization funds. We get for that. With the FOGO, we'll add another 25%. We'll lift our diversion to 75%. And the minimization funds will provide the capital cost for the collection bins for the FOGO, for the organic and green waste collections. As I said earlier, their expectation is that councils will continue to promote minimization activities. Now, we can do it through a variety of reasons. We can do workshops, co-funding, co-sponsoring, and many other activities, but there's no specific requirements to have a direct employee who does that work. We can do it through a variety of procurement processes and embed it into the different types of contracts we have, and we have contract monitoring to monitor these services.
Thank you.
Councillor Kiriopa.
Kia ora, Stavros. Thank you for your information. Interesting to see the Te Arawa climate change strategies mentioned in here. Just further to Councillor Patterson's question, is there any partnership at all with Parakore around this type of education? Does it exist or has it been considered?
The definition of partnership, I would call it more coordination rather than partnership. They undertake a whole range of activities, and we support it in many respects, and the officer at this point in time does that coordination. So there's no significant amount of money coming out of these funds that puts funds into that organization to provide services. A lot of organizations secure their own funding from various government and crown sources to some of that work, and our officer at this point in time acts as a pivot between all these various activities.
Thank you. There don't appear to be any further questions, councillors. So, Councillor Wara, did you indicate you were moving option 2? So we agree to continue with the waste minimisation program. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Wang. Councillor Wara, you just speak in favour? Support of your motion?
No, just to say, to take on board what, if you remember when Phil gave his kōrero from our Lakes Community Board, and he caught me out around which one was recyclable and which one wasn't. So I think I wouldn't be the only one that would have been caught, but I'm just saying, I'm going to be honest about it. But I think it's really important. We're trying to look after our taiao, our environment, and education goes a long way in doing that. It's a relatively small koha really to their kaupapa. So I'd like to think that we would support that. Also, I'd like to think that in future that maybe we look at finding those partnerships that Councillor Patterson mentioned, and seeing how we can resource this and put the responsibility on, not just us, we have a responsibility, but there's responsibility everyone can play out there. So I'll be supporting this, obviously, because I'm not here to.
Thank you, Councillor Wara. Councillor Wang.
Thank you, Madam Chair. except if we were to leave it to the service provider for FOGO, it would just be simply for FOGO, whereas if we continue taking this on and leading in this area, we would be able to have a far wider reach, keep those partnerships, those relationships that have been formed over so many years. And I've been very lucky to have been involved in this program. But, you know, as we see, you know, as time moves on, our community environmental awareness and sustainability is becoming increasingly important and critical to our community's future. And by cutting funding to waste education, we risk reversing the progress that we have made in promoting responsible waste management practices. And this role is the conduit, in my view, the conduit between our businesses, our schools, our community organisations and members, and also Sustainable Charter. They have been working very closely with to businesses and get businesses into the sustainable practice. So absolutely support this motion. We must not let these such short-term financial considerations compromise our long-term commitment to better environmental practices.
Thank you, Councillor Wang. Is anyone else wants to speak in favour or against the motion? Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tautoko the comments. My leanings are towards our making mokopuna decisions. I'll steal that. The education that has been done out east side for the schools, the clean-up days that they've been doing out there, the streams, etc., and the parks, those are the things that should be replicated across the city, not taken away. So I would totally support this.
Thank you. We've heard 3-4. Any speakers wish to speak against the motion? If not, I'm now going to put the motion, which is option 2, that we agree to continue with the waste minimisation program. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Against? Thank you. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Apologies. Apologies, Councillor O'Brien. Moving on now to proposal number 8, which is to decrease the unsubsidised transport spend by 50%, which would reduce the budget from 600,000 to 300,000. Are there any questions in relation to this item, councillors? So we're on page 4 of the paper which relates to the infrastructure proposals. Councillor Barker.
Just to be clear, one of the parts of the proposal is to lower the frequency of removal of hazards for rural vegetation to 0. So that means there'll be no work done on that area of safety. Is that correct? So maybe the wording's not correct in the.
Sorry, where are you reading from?
This is in the paperwork. One of the bullet points on page 4. Down the bottom, decrease the unsubsidised, lower the frequency of the removal of some hazards from roadsides such as large trees and reduction of some rural vegetation controls to 0.
Just to clarify, Madam Chair, this proposal or option exclusively deals with parks and reserves, does not deal with primary roading networks. And they are unsubsidized because they're not considered to be part and parcel of the National Land Transport Program. That's why they get no subsidy, no funding subsidy for that. It's true, there'll be some reduction of tree branches, trimming and vegetation, but it's in parks and reserves, not in our regular roading network.
Thank you, that's clarifying. Thank you.
Councillor Waru.
Kia ora, te mana. Kia ora, Ross. Couple of questions. This I assume, and I could be wrong, that's why I'm asking the question, this would have a direct impact on Infracore and the services they provide for us? Is that correct?
No, very little, because most of this work is done by our primary roading contractor, which is Fulton Hogan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's just, the only difference here is that we receive no NZTA subsidy for these works.
And my second one was, could you please give us an example, if we take all this way, of a road or a roadway somewhere that we're probably all be familiar with around that would impact on that particular area or stretch of road?
Outside here, the government roading goes to the museum, Kiro Park, all the roading networks in there are managed by the roading department because they've got the expertise and the contractors to do that. They are not part of the national.
Material decline in the quality of the roads that you've just been talking about if we cut the budget?
Our identification of the option are, clearly said that there will be noticeable effects. We do not have any problem in utilizing the budget. We do have though a response to your expressed need to find ways of controlling some of these costs, and there is no question that there will be noticeable impacts on the presentation and the functioning of those areas. It's the question whether the level of service at a lower level at 50% is acceptable to you or not.
Any further questions? Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question on health and safety issues. If something becomes identified as a health and safety issue, would we be then calling on our own network, i.e. Infracore, to go and sort it out, and therefore they'd charge us for that?
Now, the answer to that is that, and I think our description identified that where is an acute health and safety issue, it will be prioritized to be done. Who will do it? The same contractor who does our roading network will be doing, will not be calling Infracore. But, the hypothetical question is that a cumulative effect of a number of health and safety issues may lead to the need to spend more money than we have in our budget. The answer at the end of the day is that we have a responsibility to address primarily health and safety issues, and we have to do what needs to be done. And again, our description of the option clearly says that those issues have to be addressed, when they occur.
No further questions? So, councillors, we have two options, which is to reduce the amount by 50% or not, or some other figure. So looking for a mover of a motion, which is Councillor Lee. What's your proposal, Councillor Lee?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would be happy to move that Council continues business as usual in this respect, that Council agrees to fund the full unsubsidised transport network maintenance spend of 600,000 and adds the 300 back into the budget.
Okay, thank you. That's option 2. Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor O'Brien. Do you wish to speak to that, Councillor Lee? Or?
Sure. So, 2/3 of the community oppose this proposal. I think a strong feeling that's come through our community is that the beautification of the city is important to us, and this would have a detrimental effect on the appearance of our city, and that goes to the pride that we have in our community, in our city, and I don't believe that's what that community are wanting from us.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. Councillor O'Brien? Any other councillors wish to speak for or against this motion? So we have it moved and seconded. Option 2, that we agree to fund the full unsubsidised transport network maintenance spend of $600,000. If not, I'm now going to put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Against? Thank you, that is carried. Thank you, Stavros. Councillors, we'll just give you a minute to change pages. We're now going to the council section. So we're on proposal 6, which is to disestablish the role of the Deputy Chief Executive Office, which is going to remove $200,000 from the budget. Are there any questions on this item? Councillor Maxwell.
Yes, I just have a quick question here, because we always pride ourselves, Rotorua Lakes Council, as being good employees. So it all happened so quick, if I recall. Can I ask our Chief Executive Officer, did we ever provide a letter of thanks when this position became vacant at the time? It just happened all so quick. That's a question.
Through you, Chair.
I'm just wondering. I'm not really sure that that's an appropriate question, Councillor Maxwell. We're just relating to the, if it's a question relating to the disestablishment of the role, then I'll allow it. Otherwise, I think we're wandering into some different territory there. So are there questions around this? Because the proposal is to disestablish the role of the Deputy Chief Executive and to remove that $200,000 from the budget.
I know, it's just the only opportunity that one has to ask, did we do, did we do things properly in the first instance in just establishing this role?
Thank you. I think, as I said, we'll just deal with the motion with the proposal as it is here. If there are no further questions, I'm going to ask for a mover or a seconder. Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. Your preference is option 1, which is to disestablish the role, so you're moving that. Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Brown. Do you wish to speak to that, Councillor O'Brien? Councillor Brown? No? Thank you. Did you wish to speak?
Sorry, Madam Chair, just a quick comment to acknowledge with this going away, the work that our Chief Executive, Jeff, and his team, the exec team, have done in absorbing the workload and also adapting with these changes. So just an acknowledgement.
Thank you, Councillor Wang. Councillor Maxwell?
Yeah, I guess that's what I was leading to, is just wanted to ensure we did things well and properly as a good employee, and just to acknowledge the past employees no longer with us. I think he did a tremendous job. I wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maxwell. I'm now going to put that motion that we disestablish that role. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Against? Thank you. That is carried. Proposal 9, that's to reduce the funding to the Cadetship graduate program, removing $100,000 from the budget. Are there any questions in relation to this item? Councillor Waru?
I'm not sure. I think this is to do. This is in JP's thing, isn't it?
I think
Was it
Thomas will
Stavros's
answer the
team?
question, so if you just pose the question, I'll find someone to answer it for you.
Okay, so where does this directly impact?
Thomas is going to come and answer that.
Probably across the organisation. So at the moment we have 3 cadets in place, and so they're all in the infrastructure team, and we were looking to get a couple of more cadets in other areas, and so it was up to the organisation to identify where those opportunities were, so I can't exactly pinpoint it.
Thank you, Thomas.
Any further questions, Councillor Maxwell?
I'd just like to ask, do we ever get these people back working for us after the years we've had them here with us?
So these cadetships in particular are full-time employees for taking on in junior roles and growing and developed, and they hope that they stay. But in saying that as well, like young people, they can spread their wings and learn from us, and hopefully they will come back into the future as well. But the intent is to grow and retain them. Yep.
No further questions for Thomas relating to this item? Councillor Waru?
Thank you for your indulgence at Te Tiamana. Just quickly, Thomas, in terms of, getting people coming through and they receiving the training and then going off and coming back, in which area do we really struggle to attract the talent required for a organisation like this? If you had top of the list, I know you got a list, so where would it start?
There is no number one, but there's quite a group at the start. One of them would be particularly in Stavros's area around engineering services, hence why we do have 3 cadetships there. If JP was sitting next to me, he'd mention around the planners and in particular the building consenting officers, incredibly hard and challenging to recruit at this time across New Zealand. In my area, in particular, the demands with where the world is at is in the IT infrastructure, business analysts, and I think in Anaru's and others areas, everyone has their demands, but at the moment what we're seeing is demand for technical skills that can go across different industries, and everyone is competing for those, but those 3 are predominantly the main ones at the moment. And that's not to diminish all the others, because they are equally as important and sometimes as difficult to fill.
Thank you.
No further questions. Can I ask for someone to move either option 1 or option 2? Councillor Wang?
I'd like to move option 2, that council agree to retain the current funding levels.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Waru? Do you wish to speak to that, Councillor Wang?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Council has, in my view, a responsibility to provide, and we hear it from staff all the time in the updates, that it is becoming increasingly hard to attract talent. This, in my view, is a way of growing and nurturing that talent from within and providing those opportunities to young people within our organisation, bringing in that fresh perspective and that and new blood into the organisation, providing them those opportunities, and in turn, hopefully, like Thomas said before, having that commitment from them with our organisation as well, especially in those areas that we're desperately in need of. This is, in my view, a win-win situation. We're growing talent within our organisation, and I think that is incredibly important for our succession planning.
Thank you, Councillor Wang. Councillor Waru?
Kia ora te tiamana, tērā te kōrero ne, hea te mea nui tēnei au, he tangata. So, what is the most important thing? It's people. We're talking about people here trying to grow our own whānau internally, I suppose, if you would. And I think we'd be a bit, I don't think it's wise to sort of leave it and not invest in people and try and attract the right people here to help this organisation run how we want it to run. So I'm speaking in support of the kaupapa here. And I think I've met a few of these, well, no, I know. I've met a few of these cadets that have come on. And they've actually stayed here for quite a while. They've gone away, and I know a couple who have come back. And now contributing with the skills that they've picked up in other places too, to our kaupapa here. So it does work, and it's about succession and handing on the rākau, kia hoki mai e rātou, ki te pai pai. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, ngā mihi, Councillor Waru. Any further comments, councillors? Don't appear to be any, so we've had it moved and seconded that we are going to retain the current funding levels for the cadetships and graduates. Councillor Lee, you wish to speak?
Yeah, I'd like to speak against the amendment, the proposal, if I may. I would agree with Councillor Wang, were it not for the economic times that we live in, and I think this is an opportunity to tighten the belt without specifically affecting a current role, and so for that reason I would be choosing not to support that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. No other comments, councillors, in relation to this item? If not, I'm now going to put the motion that we are going to retain the current levels of funding. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Those against? That is not carried. It's lost. The motion is lost. Thank you.
Sorry,
so now we
Madam
just need
Chair,
to
so
go.
do we now debate the...
So now I'm going to ask for a mover and a seconder for the motion that Council reduce the funding for the cadetships. That's option 1. So that's going to be moved by Councillor Lee. That's seconded by Councillor Brown. So anyone that hasn't spoken, or Councillor Lee, do you wish to say anything further in relation to the motion? Councillor Brown? Anyone else? No, so I'm now going to put the motion now, which is that we are going to reduce the funding for those cadetships. All those in favour, raise your hands. Against? Thank you, that is now carried.
Could I have that recorded, please?
Thank you, and your vote has been recorded against. Thank you, Councillor Wang. Proposal 10 on page 3. Which is to halve the training budget from $240,000 to $120,000. So that removes $120,000 from the budget. Are there any questions on this item? Councillor Kiriopa?
I'm just interested as to how the decision is made as to where the cuts are happening, because I see the only examples we were given were the professional development involving the bicultural aspects, and I'm just interested as to how that will be weighed up against the other professional development that's happening within council, please. Thank you.
Part of this is we've also signed up for a service with CoLab, which is the Waikato Shared Services around accessing their shared learning opportunities. So while there is a cut to the budget, we will be working with them to leverage off some wider generic training programs to fill the void. With regards to the work that the team will need to do around prioritisation, there is a commitment first of all of those staff members with professional memberships that need to be maintained through ongoing training that is prioritised. One of the other aspects that will be prioritised as well is particularly the Noho Marae program and those sorts of things. Now it may be that the frequency may need to change to fit within the overall budget, but the commitment to undertake those strategic training initiatives will continue. Then, and around third to that will be have to be a determination by the group managers and the managers with regards to whether there's new technical skills that need to be taught for a staff member, or whether there's a ongoing initiative, and we'll have to weigh up case by case, which we do currently anyway, as to whether a staff member should get additional training. So that's sort of the sequence that we'll work through.
Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you, and thank you, Thomas. You touched on possible retention of the Noho Marae program. You touched on it. Can I ask, did you say that might be reduced to or retained? Because I'd like to speak in favour of it being retained. It actually turns out not just for the staff, but I found there was an opportunity for councillors themselves to attend those, and we get to know our own staff, and it lasts a long time. So, yeah, I'd like to see that being retained somehow strongly. Thank you.
Yeah, so just to reiterate, councillors, it is part of our induction program, and there is no intention to remove it. But what we will likely need to do is look at the frequency of it, and we may not have as many during the year as we currently do. Yep.
Any further questions? Councillor Waru, I think you had one.
Kia ora te tiamana. Thomas, so would the reduction equally apply to all the rest of the professional development in the organisation?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Any further questions? I just have a question, Thomas. Is there an opportunity for this as a way of staff to provide mentorship to other staff by providing that training in-house and passing on the skills and knowledge that current staff members who may be higher up in terms of their professional development?
So that will continue as well, and we also have an internal leadership development program, and so a lot of those internal initiatives that we deliver already will continue. Most of this budget is utilised with external providers, so it just means we've got to be a bit sharper and a bit more honed with regards to how we utilise those funds.
Thank you. Any further questions, councillors? So we have two options here. Option 1 or 2. Have I got a mover for either option? Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm happy to move option 1.
Option 1. So do I have a seconder for the motion that we reduce the training budget? Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Do you wish to speak to that, Councillor O'Brien?
It's with a heavy heart, Your Worship, but I feel at this moment, unfortunately, everywhere has to make cuts, so it is what it is. I won't go any further. We've discussed it before, so I think the argument's is the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I totoko Councillor O'Brien's point. We've already talked about this, so no thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak in relation to the motion? Councillor Waru.
Yeah, kia ora. I'd like to make an amendment in terms of the figure. So I agree with that. I just don't agree with the figure.
Right, now if we talk slowly so we can capture this, so what is your proposed change?
The proposed change is that we, instead of cutting it in half, I'd like to propose the figure that we cut it down to 160k.
From 120 to 160?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Because it's still important to keep our people trained up and get the culture right.
Okay, thank you. So the proposed amendment is we reduce the training budget from 240 to 160. Is there a seconder for that? That's Councillor Maxwell. So we now have an amended motion on the table which has been moved and seconded to reduce the training budget now to $160,000. Are there any further comments councillors wish to make in relation to that? Otherwise I'll put the amended motion to the vote. No, so we are now, it's been moved and seconded that we'll reduce the training budget to $160,000. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Against? Okay, we'll go against. That is lost. So we'll go back to the original motion, which is we're now going to reduce it to 120. Just wait for that just to come back up. Oh yeah, okay, but that's now the new. Okay, all right, we'll go back to option 1. So we're now reducing it by half. All those in favour raise your hand. Against? Thank you, that is carried.
Can I have that recorded?
Councillor Wang's vote recorded against. Is that again? You wish to have it recorded? Thank you. Moving on to proposal 11, which is to remove $50,000 funding from subscriptions for professional entities. Are there any questions of Thomas in relation to this item? Don't appear to be any. Right, but mover, Councillor Brown, what was that, sorry?
Happy to move number 1.
Option 1, that we reduce the subscriptions. Is there a seconder for that?
Sorry, Madam Chair, I did have a question to Thomas, a quick one. Thomas, how would this affect Council's image or reputation or even credibility if this were to go ahead?
Oh, this is a simple one for you, councillors. We're in the 3rd year of our subscription on the service. We have no intention of renewing it, so this has no implications for you.
Okay, so we've had it moved by Councillor Brown. Is there a seconder for that motion that we reduce the subscriptions? That's seconded by Councillor Lee. Is there any further discussion on this item, councillors? If not, we've heard there's no impact, so I'll put that motion that we reduce the subscriptions. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Against? Thank you, that is carried. Moving on now to proposal 12, which is page 5, which is to increase the salary remuneration movement from 3% to 5%, which will increase the overall staff costs by $720,000. Are there questions for Thomas in relation to this item? Councillor Waru.
Kia ora, Chairman. Kia ora, Thomas. Just a quick question. The 3% figure, where did that come from?
When preparing the initial budget, we kind of understood the pressures that we're facing, and we had a lower inflationary impact on some of our lines. During the discussions that we had, we raised it to 5, and that was in recognition of, I've got our Director of People and Capability in my ear at the moment around a war on talent, and that's just a recognition of the difficulties that New Zealand is currently experiencing around retaining and attracting talent and rewarding people. And so this recognition that 5% isn't quite matching where inflation is in salary costs at the moment, but is a step in the right direction and helps us retain our current staff, but also helps with recruitment going forward.
Just a supplementary question. So the increase will be, will that be targeted to certain brackets or of jobs, or, you know, what we call it, of income, the income brackets, sorry, revenue. So, or was it a blanket 5%?
No, so there is a framework. One of the first things we do is look at those colleagues probably on the lower grades, in particular around where the living wage and those sort of aspects are, and making sure that we have what's called a position on grades with regards to what percentage of the role that you get paid. And so what we do first is making sure that those that have been in the roles for a while and are working at the right level are lifted to 100% of those grades. And then on top of that, the majority, all staff are subject to a performance framework and has a grading element of it. And then out of that framework, falls a compensation plan. So it's not a 5% across the board. So there'll be an element of some people may get more, some people may get less. Some people will get a market movement, but also a lift in their grade with regards to recognition of years of service, improved performance and capability and technical skills. So there's quite a rigorous framework that the team used before applying the REM rewards to our staff.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the 3%, if that was the final one, that same structure that you just talked about would be applied to that too?
Yes.
Yep. Thank you.
No further questions, councillors. I'm happy to move option 1, that we agree to increase the salary from 3 to 5%. Is there a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Brown. From my perspective, I'm happy to move that. I realise that for us, I know it looks like we're going in the opposite direction, but staff are our greatest resource. Without staff, we cannot do anything, and we need to remain an employer of choice. We need to have options for people wanting to come to work for council, and we need to remunerate them appropriately for the jobs that they do. So I think it would be very short-sighted of us for us to be going with a lower increase where the market is saying that these people can be remunerated elsewhere, and we want them to come and work for council. So I'd be happy to support the motion. Councillor Brown.
Could I reserve?
Thank you. Are there any further comments that anyone wishes to make in relation to this? Councillor Waru, followed by Councillor Lee.
Yeah, kia ora. No, I support the kaupapa that's been put forward to help out our kaimahi here. I find it kind of funny that we won't be supporting them to train them. Hoi anō. Tēnā koe, tātou, I'll leave it at that. And I'm in support of getting our staff what they need, help them through.
Thank you. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm going to be going into bat for the community, arguing against this motion. I would like to quote a few of the submissions, recognising how tough it is out there in the community. One submitter has said 7.2% is cruel and out of touch. Another submitter has said, how are people going to survive a 7.2 rates hike with interest rates rising and cost of living through the roof? Wouldn't a 3 to 5% rise be more than sufficient? Another has said, I believe 7.2% increase is unacceptably high. Another says it shows a complete lack of empathy for the hardships many Rotorua residents are facing and a lack of financial restraint. You know, I would say to the staff, we are considering the redundancy of some of the staff. This is a time for belt tightening. It's a difficult time for everybody in the community, and I guess we all have to try and pull together and tighten the belt, and it's not pleasant for any of us at this time, but so I'll be voting to keep the staff raised down to the minimum of the 3%.
Apologies. Councillor Wing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would say that it's very important for us to recognise that the hundreds of staff that council employs are also members of the community who are also doing it tough as well. And having, as we've heard from Thomas, that market rates, and we all know how the private sector and the market rates are going up, but council, many of our staff stay because of their passion. This is an acknowledgement for their work that they do in our community, and as Acting Mayor Kai Fong said before, it's a recognition for the work that they do, and we wouldn't be able to function without our staff. And I find it, it's incredibly important that we give our staff the resources that they can to enable them to, do their jobs without having to having less stress on them. So absolutely support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wang. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've been doing a running tally, so we've now gone from 6.25. We're up to 7.25 now, so we're already back to our starting point. So we have nearly 46% of our ratepayers are in homes under the $500,000 CV, and yet with the 7.2% rate rise, they'd actually, in the urban area, will be looking at 8.1. So this is where I start to get nervous. We're now in the upward trajectory, and we've got to be thinking about all of our community. And there are those who didn't participate in our survey, who didn't get involved in the submissions process. And I was scratching my head as to where are these people? Why are they not telling us how difficult their lives are? And it's because we just don't kōrero to them. We're not even in their frame of mind, because they are struggling with their day-to-day, hand-to-mouth lifestyles. And there's a lot of them here, and we are just as responsible for them as we are for our own people. And I'm sure our own people within these four walls would be worried about their grandparents or parents who are living on the pension, who live on 2-minute noodles rather than light their fire. Thank you.
Councillor Brown, right of reply.
I take on Councillor's view that it is tough. There's no question, but I think we have an equal responsibility to the people that we employ as we do to the ratepayers. I just don't think that we can service those ratepayers if we don't have the people employed that we need to employ. So I'm in support of the 5%, but I do take on board, you're right, but is this the place to balance the budget? I don't think so.
Thank you. So I have moved that we agree to increase the salary remuneration movement from 3 to 5%, which will increase the budget by $720,000. All those in favour, please raise your hands. 2, 3. Against? Thank you. That is carried. Proposal 13, to disestablish the role of the Financial Services Manager, which removes $125,000 from the budget. Are there questions of Thomas in relation to this item? Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thomas, is this another one of those easy ones? What's the impact on council?
Not quite. So the role is vacant. The thinking was at the time that there's a team leader with regards to the financial accounting team would just report directly through to the Director of Finance. However, that team leader had family circumstances change and has since left as well. And so we are taking the opportunity to just change the roles and job descriptions in that area a little bit. It is okay to remove the salary budget. And we will we'll make the necessary changes. We're currently recruiting a replacement, and the salary budget reduction is achievable.
Okay. Thank you. So I have a mover that we disestablish that role. That's been moved by Councillor Brown, second by Councillor Waru. Any discussion, councillors? No, I'll put that to the vote then, that we disestablish that role. All those in favour, raise your hands. Against? Thank you. That is carried unanimously. I think the next one is the easy one as well, which is the change to the mail and cash services processing, which removes $35,000 from the budget. Any questions for Thomas in relation to this? Nope. Moved by Councillor O'Brien. Seconded Councillor Brown. I'm going to put that motion unless there is any comments that councillors want to make. No, this is a simple one. All those in favour raise your hands. Thank you. Carried unanimously. Against none. Proposal 15, which is to disestablish 5 full-time positions in the Information Solutions activity, which removes $453,000 from the budget. Questions for Thomas in relation to this item? Councillor Lee.
Thomas, I'm contemplating an amendment to this motion that staff investigate options for recouping our investment in one council by providing assistance to other councils to go live with their one council solution. Is that sensible?
I think, Councillor, it's an admirable goal, but probably not achievable. While we're the first council in New Zealand to have transitioned from another platform to the One Council platform, a lot of the councils in New Zealand that are now falling in behind us, moving to the new platform, are going from their existing, what they call CI, which platform to CIA, and so they would have no benefit in leveraging what we've done because they would just be transferring their existing processes from one legacy system into the new one. The only benefit would be new councils that were transitioning from other systems to it, and I'm not too sure the saleability or the process we would go through. It would, as I said, it would be an admirable goal, but I don't think we'd be able to achieve it.
Councillor Maxwell.
Thomas, reaffirm for me we're disestablishing 5 full-time positions that are currently vacant now.
They are, yes, vacant.
They are currently vacant. Thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So one of the positions, the Information Data Officer, that was more to do with going live, but we are now live, aren't we?
No, so the 5 roles in particular are not related to the project, so they were BAU roles. The manager of the customer service centre, we're going to have to make some changes in some reporting lines with regards to the existing structures there. The service desk lead was a new role that we were targeting to recruit, but had struggled to recruit for some period of time, and so the impact of that would be the leadership of the service desk will still stay with the operational manager. Above, the test analyst has been difficult to recruit as well. The impact of that will be as we progress on with bringing more of One Council on live and more of the modules, that more of that testing will have to fall on the existing team and operational staff. The senior business analyst is probably the hardest one that will be felt, an incredibly difficult role to fill in this market, but with regards to the support for the organisation from particularly efficiency, effectiveness, continuous improvement, leveraging of technology to help us improve, that would be the one that would be felt the most. But in saying that, we have, again, struggled to fill that. And the data officer itself is, with the changes from TRIM to the new electronic management document management system, we are comfortable that that workload can be accommodated with the existing staff that are left.
Thank you, Thomas, for those answers. There don't appear to be any further questions. So, no. So we have had it moved. Option 1, is there a seconder to agree to disestablish the 5 full-time positions? Seconded by Councillor Patterson. Any comments that you wish to make as the mover, Councillor Brown? No. Councillor Patterson? Any further discussion, councillors? Councillor Waru?
I propose an amendment It's too easy just to go cut, and especially when we've just got into a new system, we don't know all the ins and outs of it at the moment. So I'd like to say that we cut, instead of the 5 full-time positions, we cut down to not disestablish 3 full-time positions, namely probably the senior ones. But that's
so
what
just checking, do we need to know, Thomas, which 3, or are we just saying that you're disestablishing 3 positions, just so I understand?
Well, it just is disestablishing 5 full-time positions. Well, I'm just saying, and it says the things here, what I'm saying is that maybe we get to give the IT team some flexibility in case.
Perhaps this is a point of clarification, Thomas, just because the paper had the 5 roles which had specific
money attached to it.
So if Councillor Waru is proposing an amendment to change it to 3, do we need to say which ones, or do we just simply say it's 3 and then we work out later on what the percentage decrease is in terms of dollar figure?
I can work with that. With regards to prioritising the roles that are at most need at the moment, and in particular, I can see 2 or 3 there that with them lost will slow us down with regards to what we want to achieve. And so be more comfortable if you were happy for me to prioritise where they sat at an operational level. Okay, so I have just check this amended motion. So Councillor Waru, you're proposing that the council agree to just establish 3 full-time positions currently vacant, full stop, and then we'll just leave it without the dollar figure. We'll have to come back and insert that later once we know the impact of that dollar figure, or how do I...
Yeah. Sorry if it made it a bit difficult, but I'll just try to balance it a bit.
To make it easy, maybe just remove the wording full-time positions, amend the number, and I will work with the team on removing the vacancies and leaving the roles that match that and where the priorities sit, if you are comfortable.
I'm happy with that.
So we've now got the council agreed to disestablish 3 positions. Current. Is there a seconder for that proposed amendment? Councillor Maxwell, thank you. Any further discussion now that we've changed that to now be 3 instead of 5 positions?
Can I just speak to it?
You may.
Thank you. Yeah. No, I just think it's to cut is too easy. Considering we're going into a more technological sort of platform, I see the IT team being quite important as we move forward across the board, not just in the IT area, but across the board with the one program. One council program that's just come in now, and we're just going through some teething problems at the moment. I bet you there's going to be some things that will pop up, and I would like at least our executive to have the flexibility to be able to fill a role to help in that thing. Otherwise, we're just going to slow down. We heard it. And I don't want to slow down. We've got a lot of things to achieve, and things that we want to achieve. And I suggest just leaving a little bit of a cushion there for that very purpose. I'm very happy to push that forward. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor Waru. Councillor Maxwell as a seconder.
I was more than happy to support the amendment because we did get a lot of submissions that were supportive of what we're doing in the arts and culture. We even had some people who flew all the way up from Wellington to speak here with us. Paula and Randy, and they've been involved with council for a long time, and whilst this might overlap with a few other things that are here to do with the museum, I do want to say... Councillor
Maxwell, we're talking to the information solutions.
I know, but we got a lot of them there, and I just want to say generally your community is judged by how you treat your arts and culture. So, kia ora, happy to support the amendment.
Okay, so we've had it moved and seconded that we're going to disestablish 3 positions. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour, raise your hands. Against? So that is lost. It's lost. So we'll go back now to the original, option 2, that we agree to, we agree to disestablish 5, sorry. So we go back to 5 disestablished positions of 453,000. Is there a mover for that?
You had a mover.
Oh, sorry. Councillor Brown and Patterson. So any further discussion? Otherwise, I'll put the original motion to the vote. All those in favour of the original motion, which is now to establish the 5 positions, raise your hand. Against? That's carried. Thank you. Councillors, I think we'll just take a little break here. We've actually made some very good progress today, so I'm just wondering if we break now for 15 to 20 minutes, and that will just allow everyone just an opportunity to have a bit of a refresh, and we'll come back at 22. Thank you. If you could just please indicate that earlier so I can capture that. But okay,
yeah,
thank you.
I did.
So we've got Councillor Waru, Councillor Maxwell and Councillor Wang who want their votes recorded against that last motion. Okay, thank you. So we'll break now, councillors.
Sorry, Madam Chair, just one more last thing. Would it be prudent to move a motion now, seeing as our time's getting pretty close to our limit in terms of having hui?
It's not till 3:30, so...
So it's 3:30, you're going to wait till then to do it? Okay, kia ora.
We'll do that when we come back, so we'll take a short break. Thank you, councillors. Yep. over the 6 hours because that includes the Infrastructure and Environment Committee meeting time this morning. I do need a mover and a seconder that we resolve to extend the hearing time by more than 6 hours, which has been moved by Councillor O'Brien, seconded by Councillor Brown. Thank you. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, thank you. Carried. We are now continuing on with the meeting. So if you have now got your community section open on Proposal 19. Proposal 19 is to disestablish the volunteer and creative communities 0.6 of an FTE role, and to also disestablish the community arts advisor role, which would remove $128,000 from the budget. So I have got Thomas and Anaru available to answer any questions. Just give everyone a minute to find their pages and their... Any questions, councillors? Councillor Waru.
Kia ora, te tiamana, tēnā nō kōrua. I suppose this might be aimed at you more so, Anaru. The impact of reducing these roles, given the task you're being given around commercialisation of the Sir Harold Morrison Centre, given the feedback we've been given from the community around being arts and culture being, you know, part and parcel of the social fabric of Rotorua. What will the impact be, or can you foresee the impact, I should ask? And is it, what would that be? What would that look like moving forward if these were reduced roles?
Thank you for that question, Councillor Waru. I think it's part of a system. These roles form part of the broader system in regards to the arts and culture. So, from my perspective, we've had some really strong staff feedback here in regards to the values of these roles. As Councillor Maxwell spoke about earlier, you had Creative New Zealand visit here and provide their submissions themselves in person. So I think about the work of Creative New Zealand alongside our staff. If I think about the up to 150 volunteers that they have worked with, if I think about domestic and international visitors being 1,200 within this period of time in regards to the creative community role, who would do these things for us? And in regards to the partnership with Creative New Zealand for the last 3 years, from my view, the value for money given the role and the support from Creative New Zealand by itself may not actually show the true value. As part of the collective, there is true value. It's similar in regards to the arts advisor role. As you know, this person is a subject matter expert in their field. Once these subject matter experts are no longer with us, it becomes a real challenge for us to be able to deliver the service that you expect and our communities deserve from us. So, again, by itself, may not seem, because there's a lot of intricacies to the roles, but as part of the collective, certainly will make things challenging. If I think about particularly the creative communities role, depending on where the museum fits into the next phase for you as councillors, there are certainly opportunities to be training and to be working with other volunteers to be able to set up a volunteer network of people who will be able to talk with some confidence to the museum. Equally with the arts advisor role, Now, there's some specialist conservation work that would need to be done in government gardens that this person coordinates for us, but equally does a lot of work around Rotorua that's often, in my view, undervalued, but has absolute value to our communities. So I know this is a big decision. I get that. The value add of these roles to our community, in my view, is significant.
Thank you, Anaru, and just, given the feedback we had from our people that came to present around, how staunch they were around the importance of ensuring that voice will creative communities and the arts.
Councillor Waru, is there a question?
I'm just elaborating on the kōrero, thank you. I think it's a very good answer, and I think we'd be a bit foolish not to really think hard about this one. Kia ora.
Okay, just a reminder, councillors, we're taking questions first, then we will debate the motion once I have a motion on the table. So, Councillor Barker, you had a question?
Well, actually I did, but now Anaru's actually answered it with his kōrero. Thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Lee?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So if I understand correctly, Anaru, this is a part-time role, 0.6 of a full-time employment, and this person administers $279,000 a year from central government funding. Is that correct?
I'd have to confirm that number.
Yeah, that's what it says here in both.
And so given...
So somebody would need to administer this this funding that we receive from central government, and obviously this is this person's role, and from the feedback we've received, this person does a wonderful job. I think...
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Don't think I have any further questions.
So, Anaru, there are actually two roles here. So the one in terms of the Community Arts Advisor role, I did note in the paper that it said because there was a proposed change in terms of the focus of public art to pivot away from the purchase to going to maintenance only, what would be the impact if that role was discontinued?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the impact of that role would be that we would have to manage the maintenance, and that would be at least once a year we would need to bring in or contract someone in, and quite difficult given the subject matter expertise required in regards to that role, to find someone suitable to be able to contract back in to do that maintenance work.
So can I just ask, what are some examples of public art and how we maintain it?
So just following on from my colleague, the skills and expertise and the knowledge of the artists and how to best resolve those things would be probably a significant loss. A good example would be recently the bust of Malfoy that got stolen from government gardens. That has now been retrieved. And the staff member is, engaging with the original artist on working on restoring it true to its form, and then finding an alternative or a more suitable place to ensure that the theft and vandalism of it won't occur again going forward. So, and I think that's just one of the many pieces of art that are particularly in our CBD. The individual has strong relationships with the artists, strong knowledge with the artists, and in particular when there's maintenance work that needs to be done, generally engages with the original artist to resolve the best way of looking after those treasures.
Thank you.
And another example of that would be Tēnei Waitiri's, the carvings within government gardens, is that the connection between this person and those artists. There's hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of art that's within the government gardens that they have that institutional knowledge around.
Okay, thank you. So are there any further questions here? So there are actually positions here, and so the way the options have been framed is that we'll take the two positions individually. Councillor Lee, do you have a question?
Yes, I do, Madam Chair. This second artist, is he involved in doing murals around the city? Was that the Tarawera Road mural? Was he involved in that one on the water tower?
Might have to check, but that's something that would have occurred through the infrastructure team around when that took place, but could have been the mural on the water tank that's been...
The Blue Lake.
Yeah.
Okay, so no further questions? So the first is to disestablish the volunteer and creative communities 0.6 FTE role. So there are two options for that, one or two in relation to that position. Councillor Wang.
Can I move option 2, that council continue to support the volunteer and creative communities role?
Okay, so I have a mover for that, seconded by Councillor Maxwell. So do you wish to speak in favour of that motion then?
Sure, I'll keep it short. I think we're very lucky to have that funding provided by by central government and, oh sorry, not central government, Creative New Zealand. But in return, I think this acting in good partnership, that in return for that funding for our community, council provide this role to distribute that funding equitably within our community, and it's important. If this role isn't there, then I see as potential that that funding could potentially cease to exist. So this is, if we are going down that direction where we as a council are going to be having public art as maintenance only, then this, I see this as critical. If we do not support this role and this funding within our community, then I think it will be detrimental to our creative community and to our arts and culture sector. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Maxwell, I think you seconded that.
Yes, I'll just tautoko and support what one of our youngest councillors has said for our community regarding the art and especially Creative New Zealand. They have never flagged over many, many years providing the funding to subsidise the things that we're doing here. I certainly support that, what Councillor Fisher has put forward. Thank you.
Any other councillors wish to speak to this motion? Councillor Lee.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I think this would be a loss not just to the creative arts community, but to Rotorua, which has really developed a bit of an artistic vibe to it. I think some of the murals that we have on some of the boxes around the place, these aren't just art, these prevent graffiti from happening. And because the artwork that we're producing is of such a standard that they don't get vandalised. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot of value for money coming in from central government to administer these roles and to do this kind of work. It's adding to the vibrancy of our community. It's giving us the opportunity to, our community, to take pride in the city. And I think this is part of the vibe and part of the feedback that we've had, and that would explain why 60% of people don't support the disestablishment of these roles.
Okay, so I've had 3 speakers in favour of the motion to continue to support that particular role. Is there anyone that wishes to speak against the motion? I've had 3 people speak in favour of the motion. We're just taking these one at a time, so...
Oh, you're going to... Because there's an and or in this thing, so I was going to suggest that we... Well, I wanted to add 0.4 as well.
So we're coming to deal with that as a separate...
Because it's all in one box, so I'll just...
Oh, it's got an and in the middle between 1, 2. So I'm going to
take... It's got an or and an and a or.
So we're doing option in relation to the volunteer and creative communities role first, and then I'll ask for a motion as to whether or not we continue to support the other arts advisor role.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Does that clarify that, Councillor Waru? So no one wishes to speak against this, so we have a motion that we continue to support the Volunteer and Creative Communities FTE 0.6 role. So I'll put that motion to the vote. All those in favour raise your hands. Against? Thank you. That's carried. Now moving to the second role, which is whether or not we reduce or not the function of the arts advisor, which is the 1 FTE with the budget allocation of $88,000. Is there a motion for one or other of those two options? Councillor?
Arts advisor and add that full-time role back into the budget.
Okay, so that's option 4 there, and Councillor Waru, you are seconding that. Does anyone wish to speak in relation to this particular motion? No, so, Councillor Waru?
Oh, and this, thank you. No, it's just, and it's not us, just tautoko ngā kōrero. You know, arts and culture is the manawa kapakapa, the heartbeat of any community. And I think that came through thick and heavy in the feedback we got from the community. Not just the arts community, by the way. It was from a diverse range of people who all supported this kaupapa. And this is how we can actually bring their kaupapa alive, is to say, okay, we're going to support the continuation of and the promotion of arts and culture in Rotorua. So, e tautoko ana I te kaupapa, kia ora.
Thank you to Councillor Waru. No further comments. I'm going to put that motion now that we continue to support the arts advisor role. All those in favour raise your hands. Against? Thank you, that is carried. Moving on to proposal 19, which is to disestablish the research analyst role, data and insights, which removes $63,000 from the budget. Are there any questions in relation to this item?
Yes.
Councillor Waru.
Is this role currently vacant? It's filled.
No, this is a filled role. If I might say, perhaps the research analyst piece doesn't speak volumes enough about the role. I think I want to appeal here to the data and insights people within this room to be able to make quality decisions, is that if I look at the strong staff feedback from the individual who is affected, however, this person makes some very strong points in regards to the organisational capability that she creates within her role. And so one example for me around work done really important for the community safety strategy was the perceptions of safety survey conducted before Christmas, but then other surveys as we move forward. Equally, there's a dossier of other bits of work right across the council that this person has provided value to. So, yeah, just like you to consider the data and insights and how important that is for us as or you as decision makers to be able to make decisions. This person works right across the organisation in that space to provide us quality information in regards to community engagement to enable us with our decision making.
Questions still?
No, thank you, Anaru.
Can I just ask a question how this impacts the other roles that we just disestablished with from the information systems, because we're talking here data and insights collection. Is that sort of a crossover of some of the other roles that... No. Councillor Brown, are you... Councillor Barker.
Can I just ask about any potential impacts that it might have across the rest of the organisation, such as the library and other engagement projects that have happened or could happen, and perhaps how it might impact our desire to have authentic engagement with our community.
Yes, thank you for that question, Councillor Barker. My view would be that would be significant also, because someone would have to pick up that role, and you need to have the knowledge, skills, experience to be able to do those things and do them in a way that is credible and, as you said just then, about authentic engagement. And this person has all of those attributes. And if anything, I think the banding of that particular role is not necessarily accurate given her wealth of experience within a role, would be my view.
No further questions, councillors, so I need a mover or seconder for option 1 or 2. Councillor Brown.
Move.
2, that we retain the function.
Retain, yes.
Seconded by Councillor Lee. Do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes. One of the number one things that I'm here for is to encourage good decision making, and if this person helps us get to that point, then I think it's a necessity. That's really all I've got to say, but thanks for making it clear to us.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I read the relevant submissions from staff on this role. She is all across the organisation. She's got an exceptional CV and has a unique skill set that we're fortunate to have here in Rotorua, and she loves Rotorua. But she's contributed to the surveys, or the designing of the surveys, both hard copy and more recently online. So she gives us the eyes and ears to the organisation and into the community. And so without this, we would be acting in the dark somewhat. So I would be supporting the retaining of this role.
Thank you. Are there anyone else that wishes to speak? No. I shall now put that motion. All those in favour to retain that role, please raise your hands. Thank you. Against? Thank you. That is carried.
And abstaining. Thank you.
And Councillor Patterson is abstaining. Moving on to proposal 21, which is to stop the museum education program. Impact on the budget is 260,000 with 2 half-time 2.5 FTEs. Any questions? Councillor Patterson.
Just wondering if I could move an amendment.
Okay, I'll just take questions first. So are there any other questions in relation to this? Yes, Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. Through the Chair, is this the program that transport costs are covered by Ngāti Whakau when they bring the endowment fund, and they've been doing this for a long, long time, 13 years? Is this the one?
Yes, that's correct, Councillor Maxwell. It is.
So I flag I'd like to move a motion first before.
I'll just take a question. I think were questions. Councillor Warren, did you have a question?
Yes, and just a very quick one. Thank you, Te Chairmana. Again, the same question as I asked before. Are these roles currently filled?
Yes, they are. They are filled.
Thank you.
Hang on, I think Councillor Patterson, did you indicate you wanted to move a motion, or did? Okay, so hang on a minute. So I need to have a motion on the table, and since Councillor Patterson, you indicated first, you do get the opportunity to suggest what your motion is.
Thank you, Your Worship. Basically, I agree with the overall proposal. I recommend that we amend the motion in order to investigate funding partners going forward. So it would be that council agrees to continue, so we're talking about option 2, that council agrees to continue providing education services at Te Whare Taonga and adds back the 2 full-time employees and 2 half-time full-time roles and $268,000 to the 2023-24 budget, and that staff report back in time for the LTP on any other potential funding sources or partnerships that may reduce the contribution for ratepayers going forward.
Okay, just give me 2 minutes. We'll just see if we can get some of that up. I think we've kind of captured some of the wording, so I'm just going to see what Una's managed to capture of all of that. What is it? Would now read that first bit, and then secondly, that council direct the chief executive to investigate alternative funding sources for the service in subsequent years and bring back to the council in the long-term plan development. Does that capture your?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so now do I have a seconder for that amended motion, which is now 2 and 3? Councillor Brown. So do you wish to now speak to that, Councillor Patterson?
Yes, certainly. I mean, this, again, was one of the major things that was supported in the feedback, not only in the submissions, but also through the actual hearings. We had people speaking for it. I've had people talking to me at the meetings out in the community that it was needed to be kept. However, in the long term, I've had meetings with others who've suggested, hey, we'd like to get involved with supporting you on this so that it's not just all on the ratepayer. So the idea is that it could actually allow us to free up budget further down the track to do other things. But I would just suggest that it's an opportunity to increase our partnership connections rather than just be solely funded by council.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Councillor Brown?
Reserve, if I may.
Okay. Any further? Councillor Maxwell?
I really appreciate what Don has put forward here, and if this fails, then I would move number 2, or is that how?
So 2 and 3 had been taken together. So basically we're agreeing to continue on with the Museum Education Service, that we're agreeing to fund it, but in the meantime we're also asking the staff to investigate other funding options. So if they are available, then that would reduce the council's contribution. Right. So
just that I think it doesn't give much time to some of the funding agencies to get a commitment from them.
We're directing that effectively we would fund it, but for the long-term plan, council would come back with other funding options if they were available.
Because I was trying to appreciate that funding bodies like RECT and NZCT, this wouldn't be enough time for them to give us a commitment. But I share in what Councillor Patterson has said, that the passion that was shown by the people who came in supporting these proposals. And the other thing is the marae visits that have been happening lately. When I say lately, in the last 6 months, staff have been taking it out. They've gone out to 4 marae. I went to one of them at home. I couldn't get over on a really rainy, bad day. The place was full. People cared, and I saw the passion that the staff were showing in the love for our taonga. So yes, I'll support this, and I think it's a good one.
Councillor Wari?
Just a quick comment, Jamna, thank you. No, e tautoko ana i te kaupapa nei, I will support it. And also, you know, it came through very strong through the feedback that this program is very e kanui te aroha ki tēnei kaupapa, and rightly so. I just recently come back from another part of Te Aroha where I just asked, there were some school kids going past, I said, oh, what's that place? And they said, oh, that's blah, blah, blah. And I said, oh, well, who was that? They couldn't tell me. Didn't know their own place. I've done that here many times. The kids tell me what's going on, and that's to do with things outside of kura, which is this. So e tautoko anau 100%, and I know Ngāti Pukau endowment is also very supportive. Nā reira, tēnā tātou katoa.
Thank you to Councillor Waru. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you for your amendment, Councillor Patterson. I think it's maybe unnecessary, but I'll probably support it. One of the submissions has suggested that one option for additional funding could be to increase the fee for out-of-town students who come in, but I mean, it certainly wouldn't hurt if council staff investigated that and perhaps other options. But the bottom line is that 69% of the community oppose the idea of shutting it down, so I think we do need to listen to the community. I had the pleasure of meeting some of the team recently, and the passion is unbelievable. A lot of teachers, a lot of principals who've actually engaged with the service speak very, very highly of it, and I don't really think we have an option but to maintain the service.
Thank you. No further comments, then I'll put that amended motion that's been moved by Councillor Patterson, seconded by Councillor Brown, with that addition of the clause 3. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Against? Thank you. I think that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Sorry, just move my papers up. Proposal 22, I think this should be an easy option. Remove the museum static guard, removing $110,000 from the budget. Any questions in relation to this item? Councillor Waru?
Kia ora, Nokora. What are the health and safety implications of removing that?
Yeah, so Madam Chair, it probably was an easy decision on the assumption that we were going ahead with a construction contract that would be seismically strengthened, and during that time the site would be the responsibility of the contractor. But without that, at the moment, with regards to another set of consultation that you're doing, the risk would be that if to the building that it would not be protected at night, and we would have to find alternatives with regards to just ensuring the vandalism and a few other aspects of it. So yes, it previously was an easy one, but probably in light of the future decision ahead of you, this may put that building at risk with regards to protecting it from vandalism during the night.
I think I asked just the Chief Executive just to provide one further comment in relation to that. So in terms of the motion, it is we're removing it, saving that, but it's dependent on the outcome of the museum project consultation. So Jeff.
Subject to.
So I think through the chair, the point is made by the chair that effectively this proposal won't continue or won't be enacted until there is clear direction for the museum. So there isn't real risk around it.
Okay, so further questions, Councillor Brown?
So I'm taking it we don't have an alarm system in there, and the capital cost of an alarm system would be more than a static guard for a short period of time?
So parts of the building are alarmed, and so depending on any decision that you make, the option of further alarming it, because as you recall, a lot of the interior and the older parts has been pulled apart, and so those services aren't in place. It could be investigated, subject to a future decision as to reinstalling some of those aspects of it.
Any further questions? No, so we have the option there, which is simply to remove it, but it's subject to the outcome of the museum consultation, which is currently still running. I have a mover for that. Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Seconded, Councillor O'Brien. Any comments? No. Councillor Lee.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just concerned about the mixed message. I think what Thomas is really saying is that it's premature to consider getting rid of the static guard at this time. I don't really want to send a message out to the community that this is going to be in any way unguarded. In fact, it's a treasure of ours, and it is guarded, and it will stay guarded until such time as somebody else takes responsibility for it. I'd prefer a new motion that sort of essentially disregards the proposal.
I think it's been made clear that effectively there's no risk, and we can relook at that depending on what happens as the outcome of the museum consultation. So are there any further comments? No. Well, I'm going to put that motion now that we agree to remove it, but it's dependent on the outcome of the museum consultation. All those in favour, raise your hands. Against? Thank you, that's carried. Oh, my laptop keeps going. Apologies, sorry, my laptop keeps going to sleep in between things. So Councillor O'Brien and Councillor Barker have removed themselves from the council table, having previously declared a conflict of interest in relation to this item, which is item 23, which is to discontinue the community funding. So there are two parts to that. There's 277,000 in the 23-24 year, and then another 435,000 in future years. So I'm going to take questions first in relation to this, because there are three different funds: the Neighbourhood Matching Fund, the Community Grants Fund, and the Partnership Agreements Fund. I'll just give you a minute to recheck your papers. Councillor Waru.
Thank you, Te Chairman. Thomas Oanaru. The community funding that we're talking about here, are there any particular funding commitments or expectations from community groups that are in place, or is it all, or is this, how can I put it, this fund all contestable?
The portion that relates to the reduction is the contestable portion. So we have left budget in place for the commitments that council has made into the next financial year.
Yeah, thank you. When I read it through, I didn't quite.
Sorry, Councillor Warwick, can I just ask Ona if she could just clarify that comment?
Through you, Madam Chair. If we just go back to the decision that was made on the 22nd of March, the full community grants allocation is 435,000. The decision that was made at that time was to blanket remove that 435,000 from the budget. In fact, we can't do that because there is a 6-month termination clause for your partnership agreements and your community grants agreements. So if you chose to cease all community funding, you still have a commitment into next financial year for 6 months of your partnership agreements. So that's half of the 210,000 and half of the community grants. So that's where the 277,500 comes from. And then subsequently, if beyond the end of next financial year you chose to not have any community funding, that would be the full 435,000. In terms of the Neighbourhood Matching Fund, that is one that is not linked to any sort of contractual agreements and is open through the year. So that one you could, if you chose to, cease that one, and you could reflect that total savings of 120 in the financial year that we're talking about coming up.
I have a subsequent question, please. So thank you, Una. That cleared it up for me a bit, because I did read through the kaupapa there and I was a little bit confused as to how it was all chopped up. And saying that, you know, this is for the annual plan, and I understand now the figure of the 277K, but when it mentions and in future years, you know, $435,000, is that's an assumption that we're in the next annual plan we're going to go status quo, is that right? If we decide to can it.
Yes, that's right. So when you commence the conversations around the long-term plan, you will make a decision then about the funding for community grants. If you choose to continue to fund community grants, there is then a process by which we call for expressions of interest for those groups that may look to receive funding from council from the partnership agreements ones and the community grants. And then if they were successful, they would receive a contract for service for the next 3 years, and it would lock their funding in for that amount of time. Yeah.
Thank you. I get it. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think Councillor Lee, did you have a question?
Yes, I did. Thank you, Madam Chair. There doesn't seem to be a recommendation drafted for maintaining the status quo, or am I reading it wrong?
So are you talking about, that would be the honouring, that would be honouring them, which would be the status quo, which would be we continue to honour them, or except for the second bit, which is to cease the neighbourhood matching fund. So
exactly.
We almost need a
Yes. So we need a status quo motion, I would suggest, which I'd be happy to move in due course.
And I'd be happy to second.
So hang on, I'll just finish taking questions, and then I think we'll come back to just work out what we're doing with this, because there are 3 different funds here with different end dates or potential end dates and options. So,
sorry, Madam Chair, just a question to you. So would that really matter then if we were saying status quo? Would that would automatically mean we're going to be in line honouring those current agreements, wouldn't it?
So that would honour them through to the end of 2024, but then whether or not we wanted to continue them on, I think would still need some other clarification.
That would be an LTP discussion, wouldn't it?
The LTP.
That's a better way to put it. This is, I don't want to get them mixed up. Annual plan, LTP.
So although, can I just clarify, we don't have the neighbourhood matching fund committed now to the end of the financial year, is that right? So there's no ongoing commitment for neighbourhood matching fund. So the only current commitments we have are existing agreements under the partnership and community grants, where people have been given 3-year grants, of which we're kind of 2 years in. So they're the only ones where there's current commitments. Correct. But there's no commitment for the additional 120 for the neighbourhood matching fund. Is that correct?
My understanding is that the team will go for a process in the new financial year, if that fund is still there, and work to allocate those funds for a process.
So just a question for councillors then. I suppose there are potentially another option, which is you deal with the ones where there is a current commitment, but you could also have a different option to deal with the neighbourhood matching fund option. Middle option.
Makes it, is there any way we can reword the whole? it's kind of confusing, I think.
Okay, so let's just see where we want to get to. So do we want to honour the current partnership agreements and community grants where they have had a commitment and we don't want to give them 6 months notice to withdraw it. So effectively, we will continue to fund the 277,500 through to the end of the next financial year.
I believe so.
Are you putting that to the vote?
Sorry, what was
Are you putting that to the vote?
No, I'm just trying to get some clarification so that we can then try and craft a proposed motion.
Perhaps we could have a discussion first, and that
Yeah.
might shed some light.
So I'm just posing that as a question.
So, sorry, through you, Madam Chair. So what we're saying is what I think we moved, what we wanted to move is that it says in this box here, discontinue community funding, removes 277,500. What we're saying is no, we don't want to remove.
So that's option 2. So if you take the first part of option 2, that we will honour the current partnership agreements and community contracts until the end of 30 June 2024. And then, do you want to go on and cease the neighbourhood matching fund, which is not committed currently, to save the other 120,000?
Push your thing on.
Is this CAB in this one?
So the
Which area?
CAB is in the one that's already been committed, which is the partnership and community grants funding.
That's
So
what I'm
option 2 would be saying that we would continue to honour that commitment through to the end of the financial year. And I suppose there's still an option to look forward in terms of staff recommendations for the LTP for whatever happens beyond that. So if we were comfortable that current organisations that have current funding are supported where they've currently got a grant, then that would be the first bit of option 2. So Councillor Maxwell, that's securing the funding for the citizens' advice through to the end of the next financial year.
Are we going to give any of the groups, it's not telling them it's been cut off at this certain date to eat something, are we?
2024.
Are we going to tell CAB cutting off 2024?
Sorry, Madam Chair.
I don't want to.
Just hang on a minute. I'm just wondering if I just take...
Discuss it in the LTP going forward.
Yeah, we just need to make it clear.
Just that they get all nervous. Yeah. Status quo.
Councillors, I'm just wondering, can we just take a 10-minute recess and then I'll just try and work out what we're trying to come to in terms of trying to draft a proposed motion that might cover all of the aspects of things that people are trying to cover off, because I'm just realising it's a bit difficult to do it at the moment. So we'll just break for 10 minutes till about 1:45, and then I'll come back and we'll have a Just going to get put up an amended motion just to check that we have captured everything. So I understand that as part of the discussion, the council's wish to honour the current community grants and the partnership agreements which have funding commitments through to the end of 2024. They also still wish to ensure that the Neighbourhood Matching Fund remains in place. It currently isn't allocated, but it could be allocated in the next financial year. And that as part of that, we will ask the Chief Executive to investigate alternative funding options and distribution mechanisms and report back as part of the long-term plan development. So, did we have we didn't have a motion on the table. We didn't have a motion on the table before because we were just trying to work out what the motion might be. So, Councillor Waru, you're happy to move that amendment there, so we are honouring everything, and then we'll relook at it going forward in future years. So, seconded by Councillor Lee. So I'll now open that up for any further comments. Councillor Waru?
No, I just think it's important that we're listening to the community. This definitely was a theme coming through from all walks of life, from all different areas of kaupapa. So I'm glad that we've got this up there and hopefully it's supported. Kia ora tata.
Thank you. Councillor Lee?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is one of the issues that we've received more feedback on than most, if not all. So 74% of the community oppose us getting rid of this funding. Here is some submissions from the Citizens Advice Bureau, which this topic covers. There's an awful lot of people who have pushed back on us and have told us that they would certainly they're really demanding that we fund the citizens' advice, and rightly so. The number of submissions that we've had that have told us what an awesome job they're doing in the community, and really we don't have too much option in that respect. Some of the other submissions relating to the other funding mechanisms, it may only be $1,000 that we provide to some of the smaller organisations, but that $1,000 gives them an opportunity to get $20,000 from other funders, because receiving that $1,000 from us sets up the credibility of what they're about, and so this whole fund does play a pivotal role, it seems, in the community to grease the wheels, keep the wheels turning, and make the community go round. So,
thank you, Councillor Lee. Councillor Maxwell?
To talk on what Councillor Lee's just said, I won't repeat everything, but I just want to commend Madam Chair. I think that was well done, taking the 10-minute break and getting it right. What you've got here, wholeheartedly support what you've put up there, come back with. I thought that was a good move. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor Maxwell. Any further comments, Councillor Brown?
Well, I do support the motion as it's written, and I think this is a good place to end up. I do believe there are better ways of doing this, and I look forward to the review, and with a view, but also with a view to enabling these community groups to continue. I just think our end could be a bit tidier.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Wang?
Madam Chair, in support of this, and clearly from the submissions that we had received and from the hearing from some of the organisations that, following on from Councillor Lee's comments there about how this is seed, a lot of this is seed funding for them, and the partnership agreement, community grant, whatever it may be, provides them that credibility and that support from their council so that they could go and apply for those bigger funds. And these organisations and these programs that are funded through these community grants bring our people together. They foster a sense of belonging and create spaces for growth and collaboration. And I think that is something that is incredibly important as we move on from what has happened to our community over the last few years. But I also want to say that it's great that we have heard from our community about how important this is to them, but it's also disappointing that it had to get to this point because I see this partnership and this partnership and the leadership that council provides in this area as being critically important. But having, talking about cutting community funding and the support, vital support to our community organisations, almost feels like we were going back into that silo mentality and we were abandoning, the most vital programs and organisations that, make our community vibrant and united. So absolutely support this, but I also do have a concern about the second point up there about the alternative funding options, because I know that many of our other funders, we can't just assume that they will be taking up that responsibility. And again, it's a partnership. I would also say that, at the same time, if we're looking at other funding opportunities, potentially to some of our other trusts, we are also asking for them to take up or to add on more costs and other stresses to their organisations. So I just caution, the direction that we head to from here, but absolutely support the continuation of the partnership agreements, community funding and the neighbourhood matching fund.
Thank you, Councillor Wang. Are there any further comments? Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Keep mine short and sweet. I see this as an opportunity to take a breather for our community to actually have time to discuss this and come to perhaps a new realisation that there are other ways forward, and that we can be those people who facilitate those ways forward and guide them in a new direction, one that's more resilient and more self-sustainable. I just look at Tātou Pōnamu as a prime example. If we could repeat that across Rotorua, we would have a far stronger community than we have today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. I'd like to thank councillors for the indulgence in just letting us have a bit of time to get this right. I think we've heard very clearly from the community that they value these grants, so I thank councillors for their input and allowing us to continue on with the 3 lots of community funding. I think there is an opportunity, as Councillor Patterson and Councillor Brown have said, for us to look at how we might do things better. I think it's also an opportunity for us going forward to look at how we can be more strategic with our grants, that they align with our priorities, and these are all opportunities for the community and for council in terms of community funding going forward. So it's now been moved and seconded, so that's the highlighted. We're going to honour them. We're also going to do the investigation. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Against? Thank you. That is carried unanimously. And thank you, Councillor O'Brien. And Barker, you may resume your seats. Just going into proposal 23, which also has an impact in relation to the decision that we previously had made. So just in that intervening break, I understand that Thomas or Anaru can confirm that one of the 3 FT positions referred to in this proposal is currently vacant.
Yes, Madam Chair, that is correct. There is a support role here that is vacant. The other 2 roles are community engagement roles, strategic advisors, which I can talk to if required.
So I've just got a figure here. I think the impact would be to remove, that'll be 180,000. Correct. Oh, no, sorry, around the other way.
Yeah, round the other way, so you'd add back in.
Yeah, so removing 50.
Yep.
So that's perhaps a starting position, given that we have one role currently.
What is that starting position, sorry?
So originally the proposal was that we would reduce capacity and resourcing by disestablishing 3 FTEs. One of those positions is currently vacant. So if we were happy to continue on, we could carry on with no disestablishment. We just won't fill out of the role, and it means that we would remove $50,000 instead of 230.
Moved.
Seconded, Councillor Barker. So we'll just make sure we've got that right now. Councillor, reduce the capacity.
Just want confirmation on whether it is $50,000 or...
I think that's what Thomas has just written on a little piece of paper that I spied.
That's correct.
There we go. There's your confirmation. So just make sure that's correct. Council reduce the capacity and resourcing in the Thriving Communities Work Programme, disestablishing 1 FTE position, we need to take the S out, and removing $50,000 in next year's budget. So that's been moved by Councillor Waru. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Barker, I think, was... So is there any discussion on that now? Nope. I'm going to put that motion. All those in favour, raise your hands. Against? Carried. Thank you. Moving on now to proposal number 24. For something a little bit different, we're going to talk about increasing entrance fees at the Rotorua Aquatic Centre, the adult admission fee by $1 to $6.50 and the child by 50 cents to $3.50, which would result in an overall rates reduction of $225,000 in rates funding. Questions in relation to this, Councillor Waru?
Kia ora, e te tiamana. Thomas, probably aimed at you, mate. If we went instead of $6.50, $7, and instead of $3.50, $4, what's the impact? Putting you on the spot there, I think, sorry, but you're the numbers, mate. Kia ora.
The impact would be probably about 6 or 7% of the total revenue sought. I think the number there is, sorry, I don't have the details in front of me, but it appears it's about a $225,000 difference.
But if I add, so that's currently with the $1 up to the $6.50 and $3.50. Mm-hmm. So I'm just saying, if I pushed, if I'm just saying it, just to explore the idea of pushing it up to $7 and putting the $3.50 to $4.
It would probably add another $100,000 of revenue. Now, you need to be aware, though, that the Aquatic Centre is obviously still currently closed, and so you wouldn't realise probably all of that revenue in the financial year, but that would be the impact on a full financial year. So bearing in mind that it is targeted to be opened end of March.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Brown?
Along the same lines, it seems to me to be timely, given the refurb, to actually do some real analysis on what similar facilities are charging in the Bay, Tauranga, Taupo, to see what they're charging, keeping in mind that we want to look after our locals and our young people. So I would be looking for not just, seems like a number that's been grabbed out of nowhere. I've asked this question of you, Anaru, previously. No research has been done. We just want to take a different way. So I'd be looking to make an amendment if we to proceed, if I get, anyway.
So are you suggesting a new motion?
So the question, no, sorry, the question was, have we done any research since the last time?
Yeah, so we don't raise these fees often, and I can't even recall the last time we did this. And I think last time we traversed this was at one of the LTPs, and I recall a colleague saying, and it is a challenge of Rotorua, it is a very highly used facility. Particularly as well with regards to understanding the demographic of Rotorua, that the price of entry seems low to some, but actually for many families is actually quite high. So when you think about many of the users there have to take buses or don't have transport, and it was seen at that time that could have been a barrier. It's not just the cost of entering, it is actually the cost of getting there, and it might be, as you suggest, that maybe going into the LTP, a bit more thorough analysis of understanding where our fees sit, where the challenges are, where we're trying to place the facility going forward when it's refurbished, and targeting a new fee structure at that point.
Councillor Maxwell, followed by Councillor Kiriopa. I'm doing questions, yeah. Sorry, Councillor Kiriopa.
Thank you. I just want to tautoko what Greg has just said around understanding better who's using it, because I'm quite interested in, I spend a lot of time at the Aquatics, a lot of children obviously, but also a lot of older people as their main form of exercise, and just, in the current situation where a lot of our elderly are struggling, just be good to understand the demographics of who is using the Aquatics and what the impacts might be, and how best to target any price increases. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Waru, questions?
Yes, kia ora. Thomas, and thank you for your indulgence, Madam Chair. In terms of budgeting, would it be easier if, for this organisation to settle on a fee as proposed, and then have some kind of proviso or an amendment that I think Councillor Brown was alluding to, around doing some further investigation around pricing structure? Is that able to be done?
Sorry, Councillor Waru, I was just distracted momentarily just trying to look at this. So are you suggesting that we go with the proposed increase and then also take on board Councillor Brown's suggestion that we then look to investigate further going forward what other options might look like, or use locals rates or something else like that? So
well, it's for budgeting purposes, otherwise it's going to be left in the...
So if we did this would go through till the end of the next financial year, and there could be an opportunity for staff to then report back on and give you the opportunity to... Well,
it's not open till March, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, so for you, Madam Chair, what we could do with regards to helping balance the budget is put the revenue target in with regards to the 225, and that officers come back with the information that you requested prior to the reopening on the new price structure.
Kapai, I'm happy to support that, if that's able to be done. If it's seconded.
Sorry, I'm just not quite sure. Sorry, my puzzled look. Can you just tell me what you're actually proposing in the way of a motion? If I to try and get some wording up there, then that might clarify people's thinking and questions. So, do you want to increase the fees up now till?
Well, I want to set the price. I'll just tell you what I'm trying to do, and then you might be able to help me out.
Okay, so first off,
I want to set the price, and then I want to also add, in addition to this, that we go away and we investigate, do a proper investigation of the price structure. So by March, surely by March, we would have a reasonable idea of where we're sitting in terms of pricing.
So
does that make sense?
Are you suggesting we take the fee increase subject to a further report back to councillors the opening to reconfirm whether or not the proposed rate increase is fair or not enough or too much. Is that?
So my understanding of what I've heard is, so what we forgot to mention as well is that while the main indoor pool is being refurbished, obviously the outdoor pool is still open, and I think Anna, as Anaru just mentioned, is about 30% of the normal volume. So by increasing the fees, therefore you will generate more revenue during that period. And then what you're suggesting is put the fees up, and then prior to the opening of the new refurbished indoor pool, ask the wider question of the whole fee structure going forward from that point.
That's what I'm suggesting. Thomas said.
Okay. So
I guess the challenge will be with just the risk with that, flagging to the councillors as a price increase when there's a current reduction in level of service. And so whether you wanted to pause overall on that for that 9-month period, that would be something to consider.
okay, I'll just take some further questions and then we'll come back to see where we get to. Councillor Kiriopa?
So prior to the opening, will you have the information you need around the demographics of people using the pools?
Yes, in answer to your question, we'll be able to have that information.
Councillor Wang?
Thank you. The question I have is around the sports or the swimming groups and the water aquatic sports groups that go that operate in the aquatic centre, and the costs for them too, if it's the full rate, because I've heard from some that they pay the full rate, but I guess that would be part of that conversation if we were to review it. Would we, be able to look at that?
Thank you, Councillor Wang. That's certainly something we can look at as part of this investigation to make sure that we're meeting your expectations and also the expectations of those users.
Okay, so now I'm just checking. Are we wanting to increase the price now or hold it till March? Because I've got a suggested one here. So if we went with one, which would be that we increase the admission fee by $1, etc. But then 2, we undertake an investigation into the ongoing pricing structure or entry to the Rotorua Aquatic Centre prior to the reopening of the refurbished facility. So that would mean increasing the prices now, or if we took part of option 2, it would be that we would hold everything, come back and review in March.
I would move that.
Which one?
What you just said.
1 or 2?
1 plus the addition or the amendment to it.
Right, so 1 is that we will agree to increase the adult admission by $1 to $6.50 and increase the child admission fee by 50 cents, reducing the rate's impact, and further that the CE will be asked to come back and report on fee structure or usage prior to the opening of the refurbished facility. Sorry, my wording's just disappeared.
I think that would be a better sell to our community out there and the people with extra children and things like that. $6.50 now, and consider the extra in March, up March next year. That would be better.
Thank you, Councillor Maxwell. Any further comments just in relation to that, if that is...
Just a question then. But do we need to go back to the community with potentially a new pricing structure for consultation? And if so, would that be better done through the LTP?
I think probably once we've got the new facility open, we'd know what the new upgraded pool and amenities would look like in conjunction with the report of the scan of the rest of the other sort of regional facilities. That would give some idea that it wouldn't be necessary to go back to reconsult on this, I would feel.
Well,
that council, if maybe Thomas or Anaru could confirm that.
I'm not sure I think we can, I think it's a valid question with regards to just pausing for 3 months. I think as well, with regards to the project delivery, I just signalled there might be a little bit of a risk if it keeps raining, that the project may get delayed and get closer to that. So I think you can if you wish to implement the fees earlier, but also if you wish to pause and wrap it into the LTP, both options are valid.
Yeah, I suppose one of the things is we're only proposing a fairly, I suppose, minimal amount here, but depending on what the new amenities were and what the nature of the amount of whatever additional might need consultation. But if it was like another 20 cents or something like that, it probably doesn't need to go back to the full community. So I don't know, is there, Councillor Waru, you have a...
We're in comment time?
No, so I haven't got a mover yet, so I'm just checking that we're just discussing what is proposed to be a motion. I haven't got a mover and a seconder yet, which is that we immediately increase the fees.
I've moved it, Madam Chair.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, okay, sorry. So we do have a mover. Is there a seconder then for that? Councillor Patterson. So are there any further comments then in relation to the current motion, which is we increase the fees now and we relook at them post the opening of the new facility? Councillor.
Yeah, kia ora. Te te mana. I just think, you know, we've got to try and make some revenue somehow. And I think this is a minimal amount. I heard some kōrero going around about how they do it in Tauranga and all that. Those are some other places. I don't want us to look at Tauranga prices, to be honest. So, but otherwise, we're not going to like what comes back. Let's just be honest. Just being honest with everybody. But I think it's a way why I'm trying to set it there. Is it's an easy way. Not so much impact on the pocket. But at the end of the day, we've got all these other things too we need to try and balance out. We get into the beautification side of things now, Homa. And I know there's going to be some yep. But we need to start thinking a bit more clearly around how we're going to actually service all that and balance out our books. So this is the reason I'm pushing for that uplift, which is only very minimal. And I'm look forward to the research coming back. And I hope that's doesn't take too much to come back. So, kona noho tāku, kia ora tātou.
Just a minute. Just checking commas, which may change the...
Throwing you another curveball over there, Madam Chair.
Sorry, we're just getting some clarification that everyone's understanding is correct. So effectively the fees would be going up as at 1 July and 2023, and we're doing an investigation to then look at what it would look like when our facility is all finished and ready to reopen. So any further discussion around that? We've had it moved and seconded. Any further questions? Councillor Brown?
Yeah, I'm just concerned that if there needs to be a public consultation piece in there, I'm sure of it, because, well, we've taken this price rise to the public. Why wouldn't we take an additional, potentially an additional price structure to the public? And I think it needs to be related to the LTP rather than chucking another piece of consultation. But I support where we're going with it. I'm just worried about getting it right for the public.
I was going to ask the Chief Executive just to comment on your query around the consultation.
So the discussion, through the chair, so the discussion that we were just having was the nature of what you need to do and when you do it will be dependent on the report back, the investigation and the report back that you get. And so it's quite appropriate to remain silent on do you need to consult or not, because that will be evaluated against what you're intending to do.
Sorry, another question then. Along, this would give us enough time to put it into the LTP if that was needed. Yep.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. So I've had that moved and seconded. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Against? Thank you, that's carried unanimously. We've reached halfway, councillors. Yay!
Madam Chair, may I ask, we're now nearly at 4:30. Are we going to move, which tomorrow, this next lot is going to be fairly meaty discussion, I would say. So should we adjourn for tomorrow? Have we got time allocated? I understand we have time allocated for tomorrow.
We do have time allocated for tomorrow. I'm happy to be in your hands. I know that we do have all of tomorrow, whereas today we only had the afternoon. So I know it's been a long day for everyone. We have reached the halfway point in terms of the 40 proposals that went out. So if councillors want to take a break now, I'm happy to adjourn for the day and we can reconvene at 9:30 tomorrow. But you must be aware that we do need to finish everything tomorrow. So tomorrow will be what it is to get through the end of the process. Sounds like everyone needs a rest and a sugar break, so... All right, well, because we're going to adjourn tomorrow, I don't think... Do we need to close this part of the meeting with the karakia? Since we're going to adjourn, we'll leave the meeting open. The karakia still remains in place. Is that correct, councillor? Okay. All right, thank you, councillors. So we'll call the meeting to a close here and we'll reconvene tomorrow morning at 9:30. You've all got a lot of homework and reading to do, so thank you all very much for your input today.